Hello, this is Stephen Nojiri, and this is another Tada Genji tradition video. This is the next video in the Kumazawa Banzan series. This video, we're briefly going to go through the text, Daigaku Wakumon, which we've been building up to. Now, I had originally intended to make this a very lengthy and in-depth set of videos, but I then decided to attempt to summarize the text in a single video and move on to different topics, but as you see on the screen, scratch that. The text is far too big to try to summarize into a single video. Even if the video is like 40 minutes long, 50 minutes long, it's a bad idea to try to put it all into one video. So I am going to still do a series of videos, but I'm going to space them out. So we'll do some Kumazawa videos, then we'll do some Genji videos, some Kusunoki videos. We'll keep spacing it out. But they will not be nearly as long or in-depth as I was originally planning, simply for the fact that I think that for the viewers it's more effective to just hit the key topics and move on. So I will refer back to some of these videos in other videos though, because there's going to be some things that we discuss in these videos that will come up in other topics. So the material contained in here cross-references nicely actually. So I'm going to put some images from the text on the screen. They'll be on the left, and then we'll work our way through each chapter, addressing some main points, highlighting a few key quotes, etc., etc. So let's get started. So the entire book is actually a series of questions and responses, broken into chapters or sections. And so this first chapter, or the first section, is discussing the purpose of the ruler, or the function of a ruler, the duty of a ruler. And it opens with the question, what is the function of the ruler? And then the answer, the initial answer is, the function or the duty, the purpose of the ruler is to be a benevolent father and mother to the people. So the ruler is a compassionate parent to the people. That is the fundamental function of the ruler. It then goes on to say things such as, he who possesses the heart of the people possesses the heart of the country. And this goes back to where you see in red, and this is going to come up again. I'll go into this some more. But the function of the ruler is to be the benevolent father and mother of the people and lead with compassionate government. Now, compassionate government is in red because that is a term called jinsei, and we're going to touch on that more. But benevolent government, compassionate government, jinsei is a very specific term. And so, if nothing else, if you come away from this video having learned the term jinsei, benevolent government or compassionate government, that is the key of which all of this is built on. So the ruler is a father and mother, a parent that leads the people with jinsei, with the compassionate government, the ethical government. And some more quotes. Like I said, he who possesses the heart of the people possesses the heart of the country. And you possess the heart of the people. Your heart and the people's hearts are connected because you practice jinsei, the benevolent ethical government. So, and it says regardless, it specifically says regardless of the benevolent mind of the ruler, if the ruler fails to practice jinsei, the compassionate government, then he is a failure. So it's not just that the ruler has a compassionate mind or that they're a benevolent person. There is a specific thing called jinsei that they must engage in, they must enact. It is not enough just to be a nice person to be a nice person, to be a benevolent person. You have to be capable of committing government with a compassionate and ethical undertone. So just being compassionate is not enough. You have to be capable of actually doing jinsei. The text is very clear on this. It also then goes on to discuss things such as the offices or roles of the government should not go to bloodlines, or should not be given for political or cultural reasons. They should go only to those who are most fit and capable for the position. The text also goes into discussing oversight procedures. This is all part of compassionate government, for example. These are some aspects of ethical government. offices go to those who are most capable, not to bloodlines or political functions. Like, for example, you owe a guy a favor, so you give him a political position. That's not ethical government. That's not compassionate government. Oversight procedures are critical. The Kumazawa Banzan is very clear that there needs to be oversight committees to make sure that there are no unethical happenings within the government. Also, another key factor here, limit positions to one person, or to just one generation. In other words, when you hire someone, you are only hiring that person. You are not hiring their family. You are not hiring their son and their grandson and their great grandson. You're just hiring a person for one lifetime, one generation. And then you have to rehire someone after that person retires or dies, etc., etc., etc. You keep the multi-generational positioning out of the equation. So the idea of multi-generational retainers actually opens the door for unethical government. So let's move on to chapter 2, which discusses the retainers. What is the function of the retainer? It opens the question, what is the purpose or the function of the retainer? And the function or the duty of the retainer is to assist the Lord in administering the jinsei. This is done by carrying out the Lord's commands and by compensating for any weakness the Lord may have. So in that regard, think of the shinobi, for example. The shinobi is an intelligence gathering master. So while the Lord himself may not be very great in gathering intelligence, your special skill set of being able to gather intelligence thus serves the Lord. So if you're an intelligence gatherer, you need to be the best intelligence gatherer you can be so that the Lord can have the best intelligence possible. That's what it means to, that's what the text means when it says compensating for the weakness of the Lord. So if you're good at Dako, if you're really good at manipulating people and arranging clandestine meetings and sort of, getting people to do things they wouldn't normally do because you're good at manipulating them, you need to be the best at that you can be so that you can do that if the Lord needs it, right? So again, that's what it means by compensating for weakness for the Lord. Being the best at what skill set you have so that you can be that skill set for the Lord. The retainers should never seek to rise above the Lord. And if you're familiar, if any of the viewers remember, I also, when I discussed the Jino Shotoki, that has an entire section on this same exact principle. The biggest problem in all samurai government history is that the samurai, whenever the samurai forget their place, that is when chaos erupts. The retainers should never seek to rise above the Lord. And and Kumazawa says the way of the retainer is the earth element. Think of the earth, the foundation, the ground. The retainer is the earth element for the Lord. They are the ground for the Lord. And now this is in red. However, retainers should not hesitate to correct and or adjust the Lord if the Lord is in error. Now this is we'll summarize the video at the end, but this is a big point because this is not really a thing in Edo period, right? During Kumazawa's lifetime. But this is the teaching. This is the Confucian teaching. This is Jinsei. Within the teaching of Jinsei, the retainers give it straight. If the Lord, if there's a mistake, if there is a problem, if something isn't working, if something has gone awry, the retainers do not sugarcoat it. They do not hide it. They do not pretend that it is working. They tell the Lord straight that something is failing, that it is not working, that there are problems. The retainer is thus the link between the people and the Lord. When disharmony erupts between the Lord and the retainers, the Lord will lose the people. Now this comes in again in Kusunoki. We've talked about like Tada Genji espionage and Kusunoki espionage, the idea of turning the people against the Lord, turning the retainers against the Lord. If you can if you can break the harmony between the retainers and the Lord, then the harmony between the people and the Lord breaks as well. So, like I said, if the Lord loses touch with the people and does things like punish too harshly, so for example, if the Lord starts punishing crimes disproportionately, starts taxing too hard, if the Lord starts crunching onto the people, heaven will take revenge for the people. So the retainers must be allowed to adjust the Lord's policies to keep all under heaven in harmony. Moving on to the next set of questions, or chapter 3, good counsel. Good counsel is not opinions expressed by the people to the ruler on moral or intellectual points. In other words, as the document says, don't try to correct the sage, right? It says, actually, the document says that it's improper for those of inferior intellects to try to correct and teach one of a superior intellect. So within this idea, the Lord is understood to be sage-like. So no one is supposed to attack his morality or his intellect. That's not what good counsel means. What good counsel means is that are points that are made regarding procedural and political measures that have been put into place, providing honest, genuine, valuable data to the Lord. Because some of these measures may seem very profound in the abstract, right? On paper they seem amazing, but when they're put into application, they're terrible. And so within Jinsei, the Lord, the wisest ruler is free from selfishness and will receive good ideas from other people. The Lord is open to the fact that while something is very intelligent and ethical and works very, very good on the drawing board, that once it gets down to the level of the people, it may not actually function correctly, or it may not function well. So that's what it means by some measures may seem profound in the abstract, but are terrible when they take form, right, and terrible in application. So the Lord needs to keep channels open to allow people to give their feedback. Now, Chapter 2 talked about the retainers giving feedback or giving direct, honest feedback to the Lord. But this chapter, chapter 3, is talking about the average citizen. Now that's a key important point. We're not talking just about, again, we're not talking about the retainer giving feedback to the Lord. Chapter 3 is about the citizens, the common citizens being allowed to give feedback to the Lord. Open channels for citizens to, talk about the things that they like and to file grievance against the things they dislike. The key point here is that the people, the common people, get a voice within Jinsei. And if you have been following these videos, in a previous Kumazawa video I discussed how when he was employed by the Ikeda clan, he actually made a suggestion box that he allowed anybody, commoner, samurai, anyone was allowed to put suggestions in the suggestion box. And that was Jinsei in action. So let's summarize these first 3 chapters and sort of discuss this a little bit and bring this first video to an end. The yellow is chapter 1, the red is chapter 2, and the blue is chapter 3. So yellow, first chapter. The ruler must practice Jinsei. That is the function of the ruler's function, is to be a parent to the people and lead them with Jinsei. Benevolent, compassionate government, not a generic idea. It is a specific Confucian concept. In this case, because Kumazawa was writing, the interpretation is aligned with the Yomegaku school of Jinsei. So in Confucianism, there's different schools and every term has a slightly different interpretation. So in this particular case, we're going mostly with the Yomegaku's concepts of Jinsei. Even though Kumazawa himself said he's not perfectly aligned to the Yomegaku, in the main, it's Yomegaku. A key feature of the Jinsei is the ethical government that seeks to match the heart of the people. Chapter number 2, The retainers must be an extension of the Lord, never to rise above the Lord. They are the means by which the Lord takes action in the world. In other words, the Lord has the intention, and the intention manifests in the world through the retainers. The retainers are the means by which the Lord's intentions manifest. They also must be the bridge between the Lord and the people. They must be capable and willing to talk honestly and straight with the Lord, even about bad news. Point number 3. The people should be allowed open channels to provide direct feedback, called good counsel, to the Lord about their actual feelings and experiences with the Lord's policies. They should be allowed to file grievance, and the Lord should adjust policies based on the people's responses to the Lord's policies. Now we're going to talk about how this does not match the Tokugawa government at all. So needless to say, these 3 points, the 3 opening chapters of the book, stand in a very stark contrast to the Tokugawa shogunate's method of operation. In other words, the Edo period government is not what is being discussed here. The Tokugawa shogunate hired retainers for multiple generations. Ranks were given based not on skill but on pedigree. Retainers were not allowed to correct the Lord. Speaking out against the Lord or criticizing the Lord's policies or pointing out the flaws of the policy could get you in trouble. Very few, only certain retainers were allowed to do that. It's not something that any of the retainers could really do. And even the ones who could do it oftentimes did not really do it because I don't know if some of the viewers may be very aware that most of the Tokugawa shoguns were pretty much known for lashing out violently against anybody that criticized them. So criticism was not really taken by the shoguns. And basically the common people, the mass, the normal, the farmers, the merchants, etc., they were just ignored. Right? So they didn't have a voice. So the Tokugawa shogunate did not utilize the principles of jinsei. They did not follow benevolent government, and nor any of the other principles that Kumazawa Banzan writes about in this book. So essentially, this book lays out jinsei and points out all the ways that the Tokugawa shogunate fails to engage in jinsei. And as we go and as I do these different videos going through it, you actually will learn a lot about the socio-economical and cultural practices, etc., etc. But basically, Kumazawa Banzan is just going to just dismantle the Tokugawa shogunate as an extremely unethical and inefficient system. And as such, the people of Japan eventually overthrow the government, right? Eventually the Tokugawa shogunate falls. And then some people would say, well, all governments eventually fail. And the reason, like Yomegaku would say, the reason that all governments eventually fail is because eventually the government becomes too comfortable in their faults and too comfortable in their unethical behaviors, and they fail to abide by jinsei, or the ways of heaven. And so they basically write their own inevitable destruction. And that is it for this video. As always, these videos are meant to be brief, and they are meant to inspire you or to give you a starting off point. The material in this video is copywritten by me, so please do not steal this material. Please do not take it. Please do not copy it. Again, I hope it inspires you. I hope that it sets you off on your own investigations and explorations.